One of the most striking realizations that people have when they begin to study the textbooks of the ancient astrologers is that life is still surprisingly similar now to how it was back then. Many of the core concerns that people have about their lives today are fundamentally the same. And this is part of the reason why a system that was created more than 2,000 years ago for studying the lives of individuals can still be useful now. In point of fact, there is something about the system of astrology created during the Hellenistic period that was so compelling in its ability to clearly articulate the fundamental facets of human life that parts of it have survived for 2 millennia. Although only part of this system made it into modern times, it is now possible to revive the rest of it, and thus reunite the ancient and modern traditions. By looking back into the past, we can create a better astrology for the future. Thrasyllus, for example, was court astrologer to the Roman Emperor Tiberius during the early Roman imperial period. A number of stories about his involvement in imperial politics are preserved by the Roman historians Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassius Dio. The most famous legend involves his first meeting with Tiberius before he became the second Roman emperor. According to one version of the story, after Thrasyllus finished interpreting Tiberius' birth chart for the first time and predicted great things for him, Tiberius then turned the tables and asked Thrasyllus what his own chart said for that day. Apparently, Tiberius was in the habit of having the astrologers he consulted with immediately killed after they were done reading his chart by throwing them off a cliff. After doing some quick calculations, Thrasyllus broke into a cold sweat and exclaimed that he was in imminent danger. At this point, impressed by Thrasyllus' ability to determine the danger he was in simply by looking at his own chart, Tiberius made the astrologer one of his closest advisors. A second legend about Thrasyllus held that one day while he and Tiberius were still living on the island of Rhodes, they saw a ship approaching in the distance, and Thrasyllus was able to correctly predict that it contained a message from the emperor recalling Tiberius back to Rome, where he would soon become successor to Augustus. The veracity of both of these legends is not certain, and they are sometimes dismissed by historians as fanciful. Both, however, seem to be well within the realm of the standard types of techniques that Hellenistic astrologers employed during that time period. From a technical standpoint, Thrasyllus would have used natal astrology both when looking at Tiberius' chart and in predicting his future, and then he probably would have calculated his own Time Lord periods and transits, which could plausibly have indicated a crisis or critical period on the day of the consultation. The prediction that Thrasyllus made on the day of the arrival of the ship could have been based on his familiarity with Tiberius' natal chart and the Time Lords that were being activated on that day. Alternatively, the prediction also could have been based on some techniques that were used in inceptional astrology for knowing the content of a letter that has been sent to you and the intentions of the one who sent it, based on the chart cast for the time that the message is received. Whatever the truth of the stories was, Thrasyllus' fame as an astrologer became legendary, to the extent that he was even mocked by the Roman poet Juvenal in the late 1st or early 2nd century. In Book 6 of his Satires, he sardonically states that female astrology enthusiasts would refuse to travel if the rules laid down by Thrasyllus indicated that the date was astrologically inauspicious. Emperor Tiberius died the following spring after the death of Thrasyllus. Since we know from other sources that Tiberius died in the year 37, this puts Thrasyllus' death as having taken place in the year 36 CE. Aside from his work as an astrologer, Thrasyllus also has the reputation of being a semi-important figure in the history of philosophy. According to the 3rd century biographer Diogenes Laertius, Thrasyllus is responsible for arranging the works of Plato and Democritus into sets of 4, otherwise known as tetralogies. Harold Tarrant explored Thrasyllus' role in arranging the Platonic corpus, arguing that Thrasyllus was an important figure in shaping the way that the texts have been read over the past 2,000 years, in addition to being a significant philosopher in his own right.